Mehanovic is a well-known documentary filmmaker. He hails originally from Bosnia, and his latest film, The Fog of Srebrenica, looks at the terrible events which took place in that area in 1995. Samir, welcome. You come from Tuzla and you remember well the events of 1995, don't they? They left an impression on you.
Well, I was a young man, doing theatre in war in Bosnia, and obviously in war we had lots of casualties, and Tuzla was like holidaying compared to, say, Sarajevo, Srebrenica. We had 200 bombs a day, which was in that time like good place to be. And in Tuzla it happened genocide. I mean the massacre on the main square, killing 71 young people in May that year. But then in July we had women coming and children, and then we heard the stories.
And no men. No
men. Yeah, we heard the stories. And even for us who knew what kind of things were happening, we couldn't believe in the first instance, which was unbearable for normal human to believe in the stories that were circling around. And Tuzla became strangely quiet, I remember that I really thought that, that's incomprehensible to think that human can do that to another human, or neighbor to neighbor,
And were you aware that the United Nations has supposedly created a safe haven in Srebrenica for these people?
Well, the point there is like we have, even within a film I was making sure, especially support with some executive producers or people who have been researching and working on BBC, like Alan Little, who mentioned Resolution 713 by United Nations, that resolution has been implemented in the beginning of war in Croatia, that says no weapons or military equipment should be brought in the former Yugoslavia, where Serbian side had Fourth Army in Europe on their side, because most officers in Yugoslav army were Serbs, and they signed ally with Milosevic. And the other sides haven't been able to arm themselves. And the way that Srebrenica worked, that people have managed by stealing the weapons from Serbs face-to-face fight to arm themselves. And then, subsequently, United Nations, facing humanitarian crisis in Srebrenica, have brought Resolution 819, in which they said that Srebrenica is going to become safe haven, and that all heavy military equipment and military equipment should be taken from Bosnian army, and Muslim majority Muslim and Bosnian Muslim, and that Serbs should withdraw, but they would withdraw just like 10 miles away. So Srebrenica was still circled around, and then they have taken all artillery from Bosnian army. So basically, and personal weapons, if they sued the army, they would take it.
And on that day, the Dutch UN troops just stood back and allowed the Serbs to enter the town, didn't they?
Well, the point is that actually, it was first Canadian battalion, and then was Dutch battalion. But then it could have been any other battalion. The point is that Dutch have been quite cynical about the whole issue, and in that moment they could have handed back in artillery, or war was starting. Serbs have decided, and they could have decided any moment that this can happen. But as they were signing Dayton Peace Agreement, they were trying to seize the territory, and they already, this is now new information that actually the journalist Florence Artman, she was reporting from war in Bosnia, and then she was in Hague. She was working with one of the Hague judges, high judges, and Carla Del Ponto, and she was recently jailed by Hague for 7 days for revealing information, and the information was that Britain, France, and USA decided on 7th of May in 1995 not to bomb, no matter what, Srebrenica. In that moment, Karadzic met Milosevic, and they have decided to do what happened in 2 months after exactly, and to take that territory, and obviously to do ethnic cleansing, with obviously Mladic, General Mladic, being the executor of the plan as a general.
Now, could you tell me what made you make this film, The Fog of Srebrenica?
Pa za buduće generacije moram reći da ako mogu uopšte da se oslobode istorije.
Rat je stao, ali za nas žrtve još uvijek nije, uvijek se rat vodi.
Well, I just felt I felt like this film was somehow in me for 20 years since these things happened. But I live in UK now, and I came in just 95 in August. So you always think you can leave stuff behind you, but actually they are in you. And then when I started making this film, then I just like opened Pandora box. I opened something that I thought is not in me, but then many things came out. But then again, working with people in real life and interviewing them, it was just horrifying, and feeling the pain, because the pain is still there, and there's still process of healing, to happen. There's no apology. There is no asking for forgiveness. There is no acceptance that this did happen, for example, from Serbian side or from international community who would like to sweep this under the carpet, And on the other hand, I watched huge amount of archive where you really realize what was going on, And obviously I was researching the facts, some international criminal tribunal, because there's lots of denial. So international criminal tribunal have facts. They have pages of dossiers of the facts, but they persecuted only 20 people in the last 21 years for Srebrenica. And that's just like not giving any good basis to build, consolidation, peace, and to move on in the future, which we should do on Balkans as a same kind of nation.
Now, we have here some footage from the film showing the Serbs, our warn viewers, showing the Serbs actually carrying out an execution. And they were filming this.
This is really heavy tape, in one moment, we'll talk about the budget and all this, but I had to watch lots of archive footage. I worked with Face TV from Sarajevo, and so the point is that this tape, particular tape in which this execution, you see an Orthodox priest blessing, Serb soldiers for about half an hour before they go, and then they take these young boys, basically about 19, 20, from the lorry, and they take them off the lorry, and then they execute them. And they're filming themselves, and the cameraman is saying, yeah, guys, I'm running out of tape, but keep doing the job, we'll last till you finish. So but there's a story about this, that actually after that this tape was available in a small town Sheet near Bosnia and Bosnia, Serbia, to watch, to hire like video, and to watch on like you would hire Rambo and
people hired
people were hired to watch, So basically, one human rights lawyer from Belgrade hired the tape, and she handed it to Hague Tribunal. And finally, these 5 men were persecuted last year for life sentence. But how many of them haven't been filming?
Yeah.
How many of them? So it's like, this nationalism that have started in 80s, great Serbian nationalism, have never actually finished this lesson. And I think it needs to come with big apology. And actually today I'm reading that actually some small number of Serbian MPs, maybe 11 out of 200, wanted to asked for resolution of Srebrenica to happen and for Srebrenica to be called genocide,
And this film is dealing with survivors of the massacre, how they've managed to cope in those years since. You say yourself, when you were filming these people talking, you yourself were crying at the other end of the camera.
You will see, the point is all men are killed, and that's what genocide was about, All men are killed, men age 13 till 70, and some younger. So these women do everything for themselves, and this kind of feeling of blame to themselves that they survived, An old man, and and you see these houses, they need to be run and they need to be helped, with what they're going through. But I actually think I somehow gathered that through all this, that people who were killed in that time had easier time than people who have to carry all this through their lives, because in the moment when they find remains, well, what happened straight after war in September, October 1995, when was signed the Dayton Peace Agreement, that Republika Srpska have ordered to rebury all the graves. So they just digged with bulldozers and scattered the bodies everywhere, because American satellite have pictured where the mass graves are. So they disturbed 19 out of 25 mass graves, and now people are finding bits of bodies. So to be able to prove that you had son who had died, you giving your DNA test, and you go through all these ordeals And some women, and this year is 120 old people are going to be buried. So every year somebody is buried, but it's not the body; it's just part of the body, because in that way the mothers can sleep peacefully, because I think human process of burying, it's important. And then there's some modern footage as well that in 2013 the mother of Srebrenica haven't been allowed to walk in the hunger stopped by Serbian police near Srebrenica, where there was 1,200 men killed. So they didn't allow them to come in and to put the flowers. So they were beaten up. So the apartheid kind of continues, and I cannot say. I think tensions are less. But the point is, until this is resolved, we cannot deny genocide. It will happen again. Sorry.
No, I think it's a very important point. You cannot deny genocide. But as well as that, the West failed these people in Srebrenica. And since then as well, all the talk of rebuilding Bosnia, the poverty remains, the bad housing remains. The West has let, unemployment remains. The West has let those people down again.
Yeah. I mean, it's a complex issue, what's happening after war, and how is war going to be, how can we get over war? But first thing, to implement democracy, I think you need to have good leadership, which we don't have on Balkans, and people are very corrupted. And I think Europe has spent some amount of money on Bosnia, but they don't know how to find way to talk to leaders. And unfortunately, one nationalism has brought another nationalism, and that's not good for any country. Nationalism, discrimination, hatred, but they're building that to be able to sustain their power. But the point to move on, we need to apologize, and we, deeply down, we can say that on one side was bad, really bad things, on another was great things. Less bad, but still some civilians have been killed on the other side as well. However, if we look at the genocide in Srebrenica, I think is the core point in which our politicians need to really look at it and make sure that it does not happen again.
But isn't one of the reasons why they don't want to look at it is because of Europe's record in Bosnia, but also because they don't really want to admit that such things could happen in Europe?
Well, Mother Hatija Mehanovic, who's actually interviewed one of the mothers, who always makes me cry whenever I watch this film, she said in one moment that this all happened because of our names. What she meant, because we are Muslims, because Europe cannot allow Muslims to exist in Europe, It's funny, recently around Brexit, they're saying, and Turkey is going to be part of Europe. I mean, wait a minute, so what, Are you going to be attacked or killed,
Oh, Istanbul is part of Europe.
Yeah, but the point is, it's like, what are people scared of, What are they scared of? And unfortunately now, when I came to UK, when I really saw the politics, I understand that actually Bosnia was failed because we are Muslims, And although Bosnians are probably the most secular Muslims in the world, so in the same way we are somehow judged by Arabic countries. They don't realize that Islam can exist in different ways, that we are westernized Muslims, same as probably British Muslims, or European Muslims that live here. But still, Islam is 1.5 billion people religion. It's not cultural thing. It's in Islam we're all one.
I mean, going back to, you were brought up in very early years in former Yugoslavia. In a sense, that worked. It brought people together. It's when you try to divide up the Balkans into separate nation states based on ethnicity, it's led in the past, during World War II and even now, into this ethnic cleansing. It's a mistake, surely.
Well, I have to say that my friend was a psychologist who introduced me to one woman that was raped. And there's about 20 women that have been raped, and it's part of the film. And that was a very heavy interview. However, the psychologist works with a group of psychologists within Bosnia and region of former Yugoslavia, where they're talking about conspiracy of silence, because we don't talk about what happened in the past. We don't bring it up for debate. We don't discuss. Then say things are happening every 50 years. So every 50 years, one side is revenging to another side. However, the breakup of Yugoslavia had two problems. One is the pluralism that didn't exist. Tito was good liberal socialist leader in a way, but on the other hand, we didn't have political parties. And the Second World War, nationalists came back straight after Tito. And unfortunately, in Serbia, the intellectuals failed. And on the other side, an artist who made a plan and program by Serb Academy of Knowledge and Science to commit genocide 10 years after. And these people are using football tags to experience, to do what they're written in their records, and to revenge from their eyes what happened 500 years ago or something. So we must look. How can we educate people, really?
I mean, it's an interesting point because it's very easy to talk about, for instance, the Islamic State militia and say this is Islam, and people do it all the time, carrying out genocide. Europe seems to want to bury that history, and it seems quite one-sided. Very quick to attack others, particularly Muslims, over this issue, but wanting to keep quiet over what's happening. Interestingly, this anniversary of the massacre in Srebrenica, in the British media, there's virtually a silence.
Yeah, I mean, you actually, I made a point before in my director's statement that you never hear that Christian extremists, committed genocide. You never link. Never mind that on that tape, Orthodox Christian priest is blessing boys going to kill civilians. You never hear that side of the story, that actually this is Christianity who did it, which I deeply believe it's not. And I deeply believe it's not what Christian values stand for, because I have still good Serb friends and neighbors and Croats, which are Orthodox and Catholic Christians. So Bosnia is not that divided as it looks from outside. However, you must not have different measure for different people. And here media is using anything that's happening remotely related with whole Islam. You never hear, Islamic radicals. You never hear their name, like Daesh, for example. That should be used.
But you have succeeded in getting this film shown in a number of places, haven't you? How have you been able to do that?
Well, I mean, you need to make good film, I think. But the point is, I was in once, because of the length is 60 minutes, we agreed to do Q&A session, and I'm working with charity Remembering Srebrenica, and also with my friend MP George Carver to show in Westminster tomorrow. It was shown in a Dock House, very important cinema for documentaries in London. It's going to be shown in Birmingham, Bradford, Blackburn in this week. So I think it's important to liaise and to work on the issue and have good story to tell. And there's lots of subjects, but you also need to be master in telling the story, which will engage people, but also warn people. For me, the most important, this film will stay for future generations. The archive is disappearing. It was shot on videotape long time ago and stuff. So the point is, it's like, I'm aware that this will survive the survivors and then the children, grandchildren, and it should stay for the future generations. And in a way, if I would be asking for revenge and seek revenge, I have done my bit by making this film.
A better form of revenge than taking up a gun.
Absolutely, absolutely. As the fellow filmmaker, French filmmaker Luc Besson said, in a moment when it was very difficult in France, in Paris, that gun cost maybe 250, 300 pounds, and the pencil cost £2. So I'd rather have camera, because in a way you can make more points and save more human lives.
Samir Mehanovic, I'd like to thank you very much. And I hope that you can catch a copy of The Fog of Srebrenica in your area. I heartily recommend it. It's a moving film. And I think you're right to say it's something that needs to be remembered and always remembered. It needs to go down in history. Samir, thank you very much. And thank you for joining us.